small rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Andor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Boy, no sooner did we wrap up last week's Rebel Force Radio, and the big settlement came down. If you hadn't heard by now, if you've been under a rock, you may not know. Gina Carano and the Walt Disney Company have settled. So that lawsuit that goes back to February 2024, bankrolled by Elon Musk, is settled officially, and as they say, can't remember if it's with prejudice or without prejudice, but basically it means that they can't relitigate. It's settled, and it ain't coming back to a courtroom anytime soon. So we're going to give you the details on all of that, our takes about whether or not we can say Cara Dune lives. We'll see. Plus, Kathleen Kennedy, more Kathleen Kennedy retirement rumors. There was not too long ago that there was all that speculation, and sources were saying that she had already shared this information with close friends and business associates that she was on her way out. And then she recanted and said, well, no, I'm not retiring from making movies. But of course, she left out the big part, which is her position at Lucasfilm. So fresh rumors on that. Also, we always love to hear interview highlights from Tony Gilroy, the man behind Andor. And so there's some new interview highlights that we're going to be listening to. Tony, I think he's talking to Jon Stewart. Yeah, that Jon Stewart. We are the #1 Star Wars podcast to be found anywhere in the galaxy. And by we, I mean my name is Jason, and with me, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. RFR #1. No doubt about that. No doubt about that. And because, you know why? Because we welcome all here at Rebel Force Radio. We welcome anyone, no matter what your walk of life is. Whether you be a Star Wars fan or even Star Trekkies, the Trekkers, you guys are welcome here too. My favorite Trekker is actually actor Todd Stashwick, who appeared in Picard Season 3.
Oh, yeah.
And he is someone who kind of became a friend of RFR's since his debut on that show. And he was great, man.
Captain
he was
Shaw.
So good. Captain Shaw. And so Todd's been out and about. He's been hitting the convention circuits and taking advantage of how, just the rewards of his career, man, and getting to hang out with fans and meet and greet with people, and he's loving it. And he came to Chicago not too long ago to be in a convention, and me and Billy Mack and Tyler and the boys, we went out to hang out with Todd at his autograph table, and he was parked right next to Machete, which was really cool. Danny Trejo. I mean, we were in there. Leia Thompson came by and hung out for a while. It was just a great day. And I was given the heads up about Todd appearing on a Star Trek podcast called Deck 78. It's a show produced by the Inglorious Treksperts, and these guys seem pretty damn cool.
They're like the Rebel Force Radio of the Trekverse, those Inglorious Treksperts.
Yeah, I was
guys.
getting those vibes.
Yeah.
I was getting those vibes. But, there can only be one Rebel Force Radio, whether it be Star Wars or Trek or Search or Gate, you name it. But David Danielson, via the unofficial RFR Facebook group, tipped me off to Todd's appearance on this podcast. And he gave a shout out to RFR and the Galloping Ghost Arcade, one of my favorite places in the world here in the Chicago area. The Galloping Ghost Arcade, the world's biggest video game arcade, featuring vintage and beautiful arcade cabinets. Over 1,000, Jason.
Hard to imagine.
It's really grown.
If I hadn't seen it for myself, I wouldn't believe it. But I have.
Well, since the last time you were here, it's grown incredible. They've taken over the entire building, and there's talk about a second floor.
Oh,
it's just gone nuts. Yeah, the Cantonese restaurant, gone. The company that makes airline meals, gone. The rich guy who had all of his Richie Rich exotic sports cars in the garage at the end, gone. All filled with video games, as far as the eye can see. I took Todd there, and he talked about it with the Deck 78 guys. And thanks again for tipping us off to this David Danielson. So let's hear what Todd had to say.
I was in Chicago for a con maybe a month and a half ago, and this gentleman, Jimmy Mack, who is one of the co-hosts of
Forcecast,
Rebel Force Radio.
Rebel Force Radio, yeah.
And so he like, and listening to those guys talk about Star Wars is like homecoming to me because because Jimmy's got this thick Chicago accent, so he's talking about his favorite film, Star Wars.
Right.
And it's like, so I've developed a friendship with him, and he's like, you got to come to the Galloping Ghost. So the Galloping Ghost in Brookfield, in Chicago, is this sprawling 80s arcade and low ceiling, nothing fancy, just like aisles this big and nothing but arcade machines. And it was just like so much fun.
That is awesome. That's awesome. You made such an impression, you and the Galloping Ghost. And as a Chicago native now, Todd has been out in L.A., I'm sure, for quite a while, but he was not aware of the Ghost.
No, I think he was aware of it.
You turned him on to it, though, right?
Yeah. I think there was an awareness of it, but I was the man who demanded his presence be made at the arcade. So we met up with our buddy Lou and hung out, and it was a great time. And that was the same weekend. Yeah, like I said, he was in town for that convention and everything. And I just noted that his impersonation of me is very similar to your impersonation of me. I just got to say. I don't know. I don't hear it so much, but yeah. I played that clip for my family, and they're like, thick Chicago accent? Because they don't know. What do they know?
Look, the last thing a fish notices is water. So the last thing Jimmy Mack's going to notice is his Chicago accent.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have any kind of Chicago accent, my friend. So there it is. Todd Stashwick. He sure is a friend of RFR.
What a nice guy. And a hell of a performance. If you haven't watched that final season of Picard, do it. He just, it takes one hell of an actor to come out there and stand toe-to-toe with icons like Jonathan Frakes and Patrick Stewart and stand on the bridge of a starship and look like you belong there. And Todd Stashwick absolutely does that.
Yes, he's a really quality actor, and since meeting him, I've been exposed to a lot of his work, and he's very diverse, and he's got a lot of versatility as an actor. And great news, it's just been announced that Todd is joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah,
it's
this is so cool. This is really cool.
He's playing a character named Paladin. I don't know who this is. But he's going to appear in the new Vision series on Disney Plus. Terry Matalas, who worked with Todd on the Picard series, they're reunited once again. These two guys, it's a 1-2 punch. It's a brilliant collaboration, which the fruits of their labor is very obvious. And here they are, they're at it again, and they're bringing Paladin to the Disney Plus. I guess I just was kind of looking around on the web for information about Paladin, and I found the front cover of Marvel Premiere number 43. This is obviously a comic book from the 70s, which is my primetime Marvel era. And so I guess Paladin came from the pages of Daredevil, and he's a super soldier of fortune.
Cool.
Yeah, Todd's going to kick ass as this guy. I can't wait. Oh, my God.
I think it's great.
Going to be amazing.
I really like when creatives, like a guy like Metalis, and they have sort of their stable of actors that they use. You know, you got Scorsese. He's loving using DiCaprio and things. And
sure.
They all have their. It just usually creates, I think, really, really good stuff. When you get an actor that can breathe life into your lines, your dialogue, and all of that, and your stories, more power to you. Continue to do that. So, and it also shows a lot of loyalty in a town that's easy to be cynical, like Hollywood and that sort of thing. So, good to see that their friendship and their professional relationship is still going strong.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Todd, I look forward to seeing you again sometime, hopefully in the near future. I'm sure you're listening to this, and congratulations on joining the MCU. Star Wars next? Why not? Come on. Let's bring the stash to the wars.
I do like that those Trexpert guys, they certainly knew Rebel Force Radio and Forcecast. That was a nice little surprise.
Sure.
So, yeah. Well, we're aware of them as well, and they do great work over there.
Awesome.
All right. This is something we haven't done in a while, but you know what? When the bat symbol gets thrown up into the sky, we have to respond. And there has been a call for a new Jimmy Mack investigative report.
Thank you, Jason. I am Jimmy Mack from the Rebel Force Radio investigative report team. And we received an investigation assignment via the official RFR Rebel Force Radio Facebook group from RFR VIP Peter Beiser. You've heard his name before, Peter Beiser. He calls in on our live after shows, and he's a fixture on RFR Q&A, a Patreon exclusive. And he has this assignment for us, looking at the scene of torture, which he calls wonderful. I don't know where he's coming from, but the wonderful scene of torture from Return of the Jedi, as the power droid gets fried on his feet by the creepy torture droid 8D8. Now, Peter says in this message, the little guy yells and screams in pain, and it sounds very cartoony. At the end of the scene, we hear it go, no, 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 no. So my crazy head wondered if it got translated. Hey, Jason, can we see that scene from Return of the Jedi? Here, put it up on the screen for RFR All Access and myself, and let's relive the magic of Power Droid Gonk getting tortured. You can totally see the jets spraying the steam out of Power Droid's feet, out of the bottom of his feet.
Boy, do I remember seeing this for the first time like it was yesterday. I was 6 years old, and I mean, Jabba's palace for me probably had the same or similar impact, Jim, on you as you saw the cantina and just you didn't know whether to be horrified or excited. It was just this mixed bag, and this poor little Gonk droid, power droid, being tortured, and then they meet 99, and he's gonna enslave 3PO, and I remember as a little kid thinking, will we see R2-D2 hanging upside down and getting his little feet steamed next?
Terrifying. Yeah. What a concept.
I know.
So Peter Beiser continues in his email or his post on the official Rebel Force Radio Facebook group. Go ahead and join that group if you are a member of Facebook. We'll ask you simple questions just to verify your existence. Make sure you're not a bot. And we'll let you in, no problem. It's a great group of people, too. So Peter Beiser continues. He says, I played the scene in French, Chinese, German, Spanish, and it's all the same track. All the other robots have new voices, but not little Gonk. He goes, no, 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 in all languages.
Get out.
So I figured maybe that's not a voice actor, but an actual recycled sound effect. Intriguing. Who is the voice of the Gonk droid known as, quote, unhappy feet, quote? So
that's a brilliant name, by the way, for this
Unhappy
character. That's fantastic.
So
yeah.
So I'll tell you what. I took the piece of audio into the RFR Sound Lab, and I was shocked. I was able to isolate the voice, the vocal parts, very cleanly. It was very humorous to listen to this. I love taking the deep dive into the sounds of Star Wars and discovering interesting things. So here's the file. Here's the sound file that I made of the tortured droid from Return of the Jedi, completely isolated.
Oh boy, that sounds even more desperate when you hear it isolated. Jeez.
Right.
Huh.
So trying to determine the identity of this person was actually pretty easy. Thank you to the RFR library, which is stacked with books like The Sounds of Star Wars by the late, great Jonathan Rinsler. And Jonathan worked very closely with Ben Burtt and went through each of the Star Wars films that Burtt worked on, scene by scene, and picked out various sound effects that were attention-worthy for this book. And he interviewed Ben and talked to Ben about all of these sounds. And Gonk Droid Tortured is sound number 137 in the book. And it says, in the same scene with the interrogator, C-3PO is terrified by the sight of a Gonk droid whose metal souls are being fried. And then Ben Burtt is quoted, I got tortured in this one as the voice of the robot who gets his feet burned off, Burtt says. Do robots feel pain? I guess so. So, the brilliant sound designer of Star Wars, the original trilogy and beyond, Ben Burtt, revealed that voice is him. So I slowed it down. I pitched it down to negative 5.4 semitones, Jason, to see if I could identify. I want to identify Ben Burtt's voice. So you listen to this and you tell me, is this Ben Burtt's voice you're hearing?
Boy, I tell you what, he is suffering for the art there. I buy it. Every groan, every no, I totally buy. That's crazy. I had no idea that was Ben Burtt. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's him. So mystery solved. Mm-hmm. You came to the right place. You came to the Rebel Force Radio Investigative Report team, and we discovered it is Ben Burtt, and it was very easy to discover that. It's been documented in this. I mean, I can't recommend this book enough. It's The Sounds of Star Wars. I don't know how hard or easy it is to find.
I think it's out of print these days. Yeah,
I'm sure it is, because it came with this really cool little feature where you could actually play the sounds from the book itself.
What a great idea.
You could plug in a headphone jack, which was very important for me to do that. So I plugged into the headphone jack right into my sound card in my computer, and I copied the whole thing because I knew the batteries here would crap out on me, but they even, gave you a little screw to replace the batteries, which I never did. Batteries did die out, but this is a fantastic book. It's a great book. If you can find it secondhand, what have you, pick it up. Do it.
Awesome.
Now, this whole conversation made me flash back to another revelation we had from a very similar moment in Star Wars history, the Return of the Jedi radio drama. Of course, the scene featuring the Gonk droid being tortured in Jabba's palace is featured in the Star Wars Return of the Jedi radio drama from 1993, I believe, is when they finally
it was like
got
10
around
years
to
later,
doing it.
yeah.
Yeah. And so at that time, the producers were tapping into various voice talent to play these roles in the Return of the Jedi radio drama. And one of the producers obviously knew Yeardley Smith, a.k.a. Lisa Simpson. and asked Lisa to voice the droid who was running Jabba's dungeon, EV-99. So Lisa Simpson actually voiced EV-99 in the Return of the Jedi radio drama. Maybe you didn't know that. Now you do. The reason you wouldn't quite know it is because her voice is so heavily processed in that radio drama. It's really hard to hear her in there at all. But of course, I took the audio into the Rebel Force Radio Sound Lab in an effort to deconstruct the vocal effects and find Lisa Simpson in that scene. Yeardley Smith, I should say. But so let's hear that audio clip where I was able to deconstruct the audio effects on Yeardley Smith's voice to find Lisa Simpson in Return of the Jedi.
May the Maker preserve us.
What have we here? You are a protocol droid, are you not?
I am C-3PO, humans.
Yes or no will do.
Oh, that is, yes.
How many languages do you speak?
I am fluent in over 6 million forms of communication and can...
Splendid. We have been without an interpreter since Jabba got angry with our last one and disintegrated him.
Disintegrated?
Other units he melts or feeds into the grinder unit. Guard, this protocol droid might be useful temporarily. Fitting with a restraining bolt and taken back up to His Excellency's main audience chamber.
R2, don't forsake me! Oh.
You're a feisty little one, but you'll soon learn respect. I have need for an R2 unit on Jabba's sail barge. You'll fill in nicely, or else.
Oh, that's Lisa. That's Lisa. We wouldn't be surprised to hear Bleeding Gums Murphy behind her at any point blowing the saxophone. That is right out of The Simpsons.
That is Lisa. Lisa Simpson hanging out in Jabba's dungeon. I mean, it's just, it's a visual I can't quite
it's crazy.
Put together in my mind, you know, but little did you know, Lisa was hanging out on Tatooine. I can tell there's going to be, with the Disney company now owning 20th Century Fox and all the rights to The Simpsons, it's only a matter of time before Lisa ends up with her own Star Wars series on Disney Plus. So,
the Adventures of EV-99.
Yeah.
Starring Yeardley Smith.
EV-99 is a Star Wars story. It will be called EV-99 and Lisa Simpson, a Star Wars story.
Yeah, mix up all the brands. These mashups are very popular these days, Very popular.
Yeah, I know. I saw some mashup recently, and I just said to myself, why the I just couldn't. I can't quite remember what it was. It'll come back to me later in
Action
the
figures.
show.
I see that. I walk in, I see what looks to be a He-Man action figure, and it's actually Lion-O from Thundercats. It's He-Man meets Lion-O. And then I see Ninja Turtles meets He-Man. And WWE meets Ninja Turtles. And I mean, it is all over the place.
Yeah, some of this cross-pollination shouldn't be happening. I mean, really, it's getting kind of messy. Let's go back to the basics and find the integrity and the core of what really makes all of these franchises appeal to people.
It makes you wonder, are people just bored with these franchises that they've got to, mix them up? Or is it, I don't know what it is, but, perhaps creative bankruptcy is what it is.
Well, it's the same corporations owning and acquiring the rights to all of these
you're
things.
Right there.
And
you are right there.
And they don't have original ideas. They only know how to exploit the brands by cross-pollinating them with the brands that they already own. I mean, that's what's going on.
Jim, can you imagine if CBS and Paramount would have been bought by Disney? Now, instead, it's this Skydance company, and they're going to be taking, they're going to be putting Trek on a little hiatus. I don't know if you heard about this, but so Skydance taking over CBS Paramount. They're going to honor the last couple of seasons of Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, which I'm a big fan of. I think it's a great show, and the two seasons of this Starfleet Academy, and then they're putting they actually put this in their press release. They're putting Trek on ice. For a couple of years. and then they want to bring it back and they want to make it a theatrical thing and all of this. So, these big corporations. I've never heard of the Skydance Corporation. Maybe I should have, but they come out of nowhere, buy CBS, buy Paramount. But imagine, had Disney bought CBS and Paramount, the Star Wars, Star Trek fever dream that we would have had to endure. Can you believe it?
Yeah, because they would definitely mash up those.
Of course they would do that. Of course they would do it.
Yeah. George was very specific about who he sold Star Wars to. And he believed the Disney company would maintain the integrity of his creation. And I still don't think he made the wrong decision. I just, regret the fact that they kind of screwed him over and kicked him to the curb. That I regret a great deal, and I'm sure George does too, because he deserved more respect than that. But I think at the end of the day, he still probably sold it to the company that will treat the brand appropriately.
Well, they have the resources.
There's swings and misses, of course. There's swings and misses, of course. With the amount of volume of Star Wars, we had 6 movies and an animated series. And then George sold the company. And now, check out the scoreboard. There's a few more animated series. There's all these little animated spin-offs and shorts. There's how many different streaming series have we had on top of 5 feature films? And in such a condensed period of time as well. So they pulled back on that too when the streaming stuff started to take off and the pandemic hit and box office business was getting real weird. They pulled back. I think that's a sign that they are treating the brand with a bit of dignity and respect. So we shall see.
We shall.
They needed to step back. They really did. So we'll see.
So I kind of give Skydance some kudos here for having the courage to take something that a new possessor, a new owner of such a huge IP in Star Trek, the restraint that they have to say, you know what, we're just going to step back for a little bit, create a good plan for this, and then and go out with it. So I dig that. I dig that a lot.
That is the right move.
Yeah.
That is like the opposite of what Disney did, quite honestly.
Sure.
That's the opposite. Disney was already scheduling the films to be released before they even signed the papers to acquire the brand.
The ink was still wet.
Yeah,
on
so
that Bob Iger signature.
Good. Right. It's good to get under the hood of this stuff when you're a business and you acquire another business.
Mm-hmm.
Before you start making knee-jerk reactions about the health of that business, get under the hood a little bit and bang around in there with your hydro spanners or tricorders, whatever the hell you're going to use.
Well, yeah, I could say the same thing, honestly, for we're big James Bond fans here at RFR, and I could say the same thing. Now, the jury's still out on what Amazon is going to end up with, but Amazon did not rush into, once they got creative control of the franchise, they didn't rush a new James Bond film into production. They're very methodically and carefully choosing the creative team and putting it together. So I think that's a good sign to me that they're taking their time, because a Bob Iger running Amazon would have said, we're going to have this in theaters in 18 months.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Amazon, is not going that route.
Yeah. Disney is kind of transparent in how they are very much up their own shareholders' butts. And so that's why, they prioritize that, and they've let us know that. So, more times than not. I mean, they publicize their shareholder meetings and stuff, and we get to listen in on them and everything. And I think at the end of the day, we sometimes wonder, is this about the brand and the health of the brand and the quality of the storytelling, or is this all about the almighty dollar at the end of the day? I mean,
well, that's a tough one. Art and money, George was talking about those things in SDCC. It's a tough nut.
Because, without one, you don't have the other. So
that's right. That's right.
It's just how the world goes round, my friend.
Rebel Force Radio.
Let's check in with Rebel Force Radio listeners and listener feedback.
Must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message after the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply.
Hey, Jimmy and Jason. This is Kyle, Patreon member for maybe 2 years now. Anyways, I was posting on the Patreon chat the other day how I just finished a Rebels and Ahsoka rewatch, and just had some questions that I posted on there, and one of the other Patreon members said this would make a good voicemail. So I figured I'd start with this one. Why in Rebels, when Sabine has the Darksaber and comes across Bo-Katan, or Katan, she is willing to take it from Sabine. But then later on, as we get to Din Djarin, willingly trying to hand it over to Bo-Katan, she denies it. And I trying to remember the Patreon member, Old Ben Ken. His theory was because Moff Gideon kind of steps in and is like, no, that's against their ways. So just curious you guys' thoughts of, like, did it take somebody else witnessing and calling out that she's breaking tradition as to why she wouldn't take the Darksaber? Or, was this just, a weak point in writing? I don't know. Because my whole thing was, you would think somebody being paid to connect all these threads would know that us fans are going to nitpick on these little details. But yeah, curious to hear you guys' thoughts. Thanks. RFR number 1, high ground.
Love it. Thank you. And thank you for being a Patreon supporter. Jim, this is not a new topic for us. We had to cover this as we reviewed each and every episode of The Mandalorian, Season 3. You can check those out. The after shows, all available on our podcast feed as well as on YouTube. So what our caller is talking about is how Bo-Katan in Rebels was more than happy to accept the Darksaber from Sabine without a fight. Yet when Din Djarin attempted to give Bo-Katan the Darksaber in Mandalorian, she wouldn't accept it. Not without a fight. Then later on, there's sort of a loophole because in Season 3, where Bo-Katan, I can't remember the name of that creature, she defeats that creature and is able then to get the Darksaber. So Din is able to convince her that because she defeated a creature that defeated him, that she was the rightful owner of the Darksaber. Caller is asking, is this a weak point in the writing? Is this inconsistency? I do think that it's a bit of a retcon to some degree, but also it is brought to bear on air. During the show, they make reference to the fact that there does need to be an exception made in the case of this creature that Bo-Katan defeats in saving the Mando, Din Djarin. I think you could retcon this to just talk about the circumstances being completely different. You have urgency when Sabine goes to hand the Darksaber over to Bo-Katan. You've got the Imperial threat. You've got the support for Clan Ren. All of this versus what's going on during the Mandalorian, where you don't have quite that urgency, that things are a little bit more passive on the one hand, and on the other hand, you've got this fragmentation of the Mandalorians. So I don't know. I just think that it's circumstantial, but at the same time, was it convenient storytelling? At the end of the day, probably a little bit of both. But I think that they redeem themselves there at the end of Season 3 by having Din concoct this loophole.
There are more loopholes with the Darksaber than any other element in the history of Star Wars. And the Darksaber confuses me. It frustrates me. And I've come to think of it as a false god to the Mandalorians. I really have. It's a false god. They pass this thing around. Now I'm in charge. I got the stick. Look at me. I got the big stick. I'm in charge now. It frustrates me, the Darksaber, and the flexibility and the loopholes that people use to pass it from one person to another. Sabine, as far as Star Wars Rebels goes, if I remember correctly, Sabine Fen Rao, remember him? He had the Darksaber. He was one of those Imperial commandos, and he had it. And Sabine beat him, and she had the Darksaber, and she wanted to give it to Bo-Katan. And Bo-Katan refused, saying she couldn't accept it because she didn't take it in battle. But then somehow Sabine convinced her by saying the Force is bringing it to you or something crazy like that. I can't remember. I can't remember these. And you know what? I've gone back to these episodes of Rebels and watched them very intently, trying to figure out what the hell is going on with this Darksaber and how the succession line works with it all. And it just like makes my brain melt. It fries my head because there are so many inconsistencies and loopholes with it all. But Sabine eventually was able to convince Bo-Katan to accept the Darksaber because her people will rally behind her with it.
Yes, and they had a big ceremony. Okay. They had a big whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, right. Again, the whole false god thing is screaming at me right now. Why is this a symbol of leadership as opposed to actual leadership itself and loyalty itself? Why do they need this object? It's crazy. I'm glad, quite honestly, I'm probably one of the few fans who breathed the sigh of relief when it was destroyed in Mandalorian Season 3. I really did. I was like, thank God they got rid of that flipping thing because it's frustrating. Do I think it's cool, this Darksaber? Yeah, it's cool. But I mean, the whole legacy behind it is just rife with storytelling flaws. And we don't ever learn how Bo-Katan lost the saber to Moff Gideon to begin with. All we know is it happened. Yep. All we know is that it happened. Why does Moff Gideon have the saber? Oh, just because. And it's that sort of Star Wars storytelling that makes me want to take a nail gun to my Achilles tendon and just let it rip. You know, anything to make me forget about it. I get really frustrated with the Darksaber. And I probably favored the presence of the Darksaber most in the hands of the villains. I enjoyed when Moff Gideon was the owner of the Darksaber. I thought it fit his character perfectly.
Or when Darth Maul had it.
No, I didn't like with Darth Maul. Because I like Darth Maul with the dual-bladed red saber. I don't like Darth Maul with the dark. Yeah. It just doesn't do anything for me. See, all these objects, too, in Star Wars is really frustrating to me. The Darksaber, the holocrons, what were the things they were chasing around in the sequel trilogy? All of the Blade of Ochi and the Wayfinder. And now in the Marvel Comics, they have all of these items. Usually they're helmets, and they're possessed by like a Sith Lord or something. They're just going over the top with these Force-infused objects. And that's kind of silly at the end of the day because especially in the Marvel Comics, it's happening over and over and over again.
When it comes to these objects, Jim, that you're talking about, I think you can draw parallels within our own world and religions that are right here in our own galaxy. There used to be a time when you needed some sort of vessel or object to get close to your God. And the rise of Christianity was such that you didn't need these, what became, false idols and to have a closeness or a relationship to your God. So when you look at Star Wars, these objects, I feel like that they're lesser versions, or maybe represent characters that have a lesser spirituality. By the time you get to Yoda, like Yoda has nothing. Like he doesn't own anything. He's living on this swamp. He all he has is himself and his relationship to the Force, like the purest form of connection to what we consider religion in Star Wars. So these things are, I agree with you. I think they are all false idols, and they're lesser manifestations of what is the end game, which is a pure connection between the individual and whether it be God or the Force or what have you. You don't need anything in between you and your God. It's a personal relationship, or you and the Force, personal relationship. That's my interpretation. Obviously, it's based on my own individual beliefs, but that's how I always looked at it. In the same way that I thought the midichlorians were a less than way to explain. Now, we know what it does in terms of storytelling, but if you look at it within context of the universe, it was a way that the Jedi had become too dependent on science and technology to explain their power, when the reality is that none of that matters. It's the relationship between the individual and the Force and the connection.
I know, but that was more of a straightforward storytelling device, and I guess you could say the Darksaber is as well, just to illustrate the succession of Mandalorian leader to symbolic. Mandalorian leader. It's a storytelling device, and that's all it is. And maybe we shouldn't be getting under the hood too much as far as that's concerned. You know, midichlorians, that's a very interesting thing you bring up, but that was just a way of showing that it wasn't just Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon having a feeling about Anakin being strong, like the chosen one. He had to achieve that level. He could be strong in the Force, and anyone could feel that. But I mean, to really drive the point home that Anakin Skywalker is the quote chosen one, is to measure it and show off the charts, baby, off the charts, more than Yoda. Hey, that's big Jedi stuff going on there. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I've never, ever struggled with the midichlorian thing, except for the first time I heard about it, which was before the film came out. And I heard about midichlorians and how there's going to be a scientific explanation for the Force. But then when I saw the film, I didn't consider it necessarily a scientific explanation. I just looked at it as a way of measuring Anakin Skywalker's ability in the Force without just having people say, well, I feel the Force coming. I mean, to me, I like having something that I can actually grab hold of as a realistic measurement tool for the Force, as opposed to just saying, strong with the Force, you're strong, or, whatever. I like to have that measurement.
I'm the opposite. I appreciate it more as an in-universe demonstration of how lost the Jedi were at the time of the events of the Phantom Menace. I like it less as George feeling that he needed to spoon feed the audience in the prequel era, whereas in the OT era, George left things a little bit more mysterious, a little less on the nose. So I'm kind of the reverse of it. But where you and I both meet is I don't mind it, is another word. It doesn't ruin anything for me, because narratively I get the idea that it represents a lower understanding of spirituality than what they attain after the Purge, after Qui-Gon and Yoda become one with the Force, maintaining their individuality, all that stuff.
Well, I dig that. And I'll tell you why. Is because you sort of opened my eyes to something about how I consider the midichlorians to be sort of necessary to illustrate how Anakin is super strong in the Force, right?
Yeah.
But that's Phantom Menace. That's the fourth film in the series. At this point, we've already been educated about Darth Vader and his strength in the Force.
Mm-hmm.
We've already been educated about Luke Skywalker and his strength in the Force. So do we really need to have examples of what makes Anakin strong? As far as we were concerned, Luke Skywalker was one of the strongest Jedi that ever existed in 1999 when we saw the film. We didn't need to have proof. But see, here's the thing about George and his approach, is that he's not looking at it as the fourth film. He's looking at it as the first film. And he's setting everything up for future generations to watch the saga 1 and up.
Yep.
I was going to say just 1 through 6, but of course we know it's now 1 through 9. And then I started questioning, well, should I include the 7, 8, 9? And, well, of course I should. So I'm just going to say 1 and up.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. George was constructing those prequels to stand as the first 3 films that you would chronologically watch to experience the saga. 100%.
So I believe we needed something then for a 9-year-old to convince us that, you know, he's going to be one of the most powerful Jedi ever. It's like, sure, he could be exhibiting potential in the Force at 9 years old, but give me something more. I need an end game. So I'm back to appreciating the midi-chlorians. When I take myself out of real time and put myself into episodic time 1 through 9, then I see the setup being more necessary than a general audience moviegoer attendee seeing The Phantom Menace in 1999, and thus may have promoted some of the frustrations film goers had with The Phantom Menace, because we felt like, hey, we're superstar experts on Star Wars at this point. We've had Star Wars in our lives for 22 years by 1999 when The Phantom Menace is released. But George didn't tell us. Well, I guess he did tell us. He's like, he was taking everything back to square one.
He sure was.
And I don't think a lot of fans were prepared for that.
No, you're absolutely right. He was changing the perspective, and he was sort of, in a way, future-proofing, in his mind, the viewing experience for generations to come. He wasn't thinking about you and me, Jim. He was thinking about our kids, really, is what he was thinking about.
What a interesting and revolutionary approach that he was taking. I mean, is there any other example in storytelling that would have had that? I mean, sure, you could read the New Testament before you read the Old Testament, but I mean, outside of that, I mean, is there anything where we get such a story?
Jim, I don't even think the word prequel was in the cultural lexicon until The Phantom Menace.
It was there, bubbling under the surface.
But I mean, as far as mainstream, talking about a prequel, I feel like that was the first time I ever even heard the word, was as it was associated to the Star Wars stories.
Yeah, maybe. There was a movie, Butch and Sundance, the early years. It came out in the late 70s as a sequel to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I recall that movie being referred to as a prequel.
Okay.
And it may have been the first time I ever heard the instance of that word being used as far as film.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well,
Crazy.
A great question. I mean, this certainly took a lot of twists and turns, as the question was originally about the Darksaber. But yeah, there's a lot of themes. And
did we answer the question? What was the question?
Well, the question was it a writer inconsistency? Was it just a case of, oh, we forgot about that? Or is there real canonical evidence to suggest that this is a legitimate thing? And I just think that you're right, that there's a lot of loosey-goosey rules with this thing.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be taken that seriously. Honestly, it's a weapon that is a symbol of leadership within Mando culture. I don't think it's tied to anything spiritual. I think that you said it was a false idol. I totally agree. So I wouldn't attach much more meaning to it than that. And so they can play fast and loose with the rules because it really doesn't have any power. It's all symbolic.
Just because the Death Watch Mandalorians idolize this thing doesn't necessarily mean we as an audience should. I mean, it's cool as hell.
Yes.
But we shouldn't be necessarily accepting it as is via the perspective of those purist and fundamental Death Watch Mandalorians. I mean, they were out of touch with the rest of the galaxy. Clearly, they were out of touch with the planet Mandalore, a society of pacifists.
Mm-hmm.
And the Death Watch were hearing the howl of the hunt and the call of the warrior, kind of like Klingons.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the rest of their star system kind of turned their backs on that stuff. And then it all got brought back in a big way via Darth Maul and the Shadow Collective and all of that. And, those pacifists didn't stand a chance.
Well, if this is the kind of Star Wars conversation that you like, which obviously you do when you listen to this podcast, but you're saying to yourself, I want more of this, best place to get that is Rebel Force Radio over on Patreon. There's always something new over on Patreon. So in between episodes of Rebel Force Radio podcast and our after shows, there is a slew, a cacophony, you might say, of content over there on Patreon to satiate you in between RFR podcasts.
RFR on Patreon is the best way to support Rebel Force Radio and to guarantee we keep bringing you this podcast for years to come. Rebel Force Radio on Patreon. Become a member. Join the community. It's a great community of Star Wars fans. I would say the best community of Star Wars fans on the internet or anywhere else. And there are so many opportunities for you to interact with that community via patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. You can choose from a number of tiers, and the higher the tier, the more you get in return. We're talking bonus podcasts like RFR Q&A, RFR RPG, the Babu Freaks. We're talking ad-free early bird releases of each episode of Rebel Force Radio. This week we have RFR Q&A, number 259. That's a bonus Patreon exclusive podcast. You can join myself and RFR VIP Jonathan Tilley as we discuss Star Wars books in the Bad Batch, specifically the new Bad Batch novel Sanctuary. You can hear Jonathan's review of it. He consumed that book in 3 days. He enjoyed it so much. And it is a good book. It is a good book. I'm diving into the audiobook myself. So you can hear our conversation about that, plus the history of Star Wars books, everything from the Yuzhan Vong all the way up to the High Republic and beyond. We even talk about Star Wars comics and the Rise of Skywalker. So that was a really fun conversation I had with Jonathan. And of course, RFR All Access members get the full show video of not only that episode of RFR Q&A, but every episode of Rebel Force Radio, including the weekly RFR that you're listening to right now. It's all there at Rebel Force Radio on Patreon. Just go check it out. Patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. Find the size that fits you and get involved. Join the community. Become a part of Rebel Force Radio and get mad perks in return. The entire community is really looking forward to Rebel Force Radio at Rancho Obi-Wan in just a few weeks. Again, I believe it's the largest gathering of RFR Patreon supporters and VIPs that's ever occurred. We don't want you to miss any of the action. Join us. Patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio.
Rebel Force Radio.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
All right, well, Star Wars is a saga, both on-screen and off-screen, and one of the biggest off-screen sagas has, I believe, finally come to a conclusion, and that is the lawsuit that began back in February of 2024 has, Well, it's ended. It ended in a settlement between Gina Carano, Cara Dune from The Mandalorian on Disney Plus, and the Disney company. The lawsuit was, on the Carano side, bankrolled by Elon Musk, who needs, obviously, no introduction. We all know all over the world who Elon Musk is. But, Jim, this goes all the way back to August of 2020. We were in the throes of the pandemic. We had, there was so much sensitivity between in the United States, between a very close election, coupled with the fallout of the pandemic. Everybody was just so, the tempers were just at an all-time fever pitch. And so I think in a lot of ways it was the perfect storm. You had Gina, as well as other celebrities and influencers on social media, posting all kinds of things, political commentary on the pandemic, and it sort of all came to a head back in February of 2021 when Gina posted some things on her social media that a lot of people found objectionable, comparing Jews during the Holocaust to Republicans or conservatives in the United States. It ended up in a big hashtag Fire Gina Carano campaign on social media. And within a day, Lucasfilm announced on social media, not a phone call to Gina Carano or her agent or anyone else, that she was fired from the Mandalorian, no longer employed, and no future plans. They called her posts abhorrent and unacceptable. And things kind of were quiet for a little while. And then in August of 2023, Elon Musk announced that he would fund legal bills for users that were fired, for ex-users who were fired from their jobs due to posts on the Twitter/X platform. And Gina Carano accepted those funds for her case. It was filed in February of 2024. And here's where things kind of got interesting. In April, just a couple of months after the filing of the lawsuit, Disney filed a motion that was not unexpected to dismiss the lawsuit, saying, hey, we've got a First Amendment right not to associate our artistic expression with Gina Carano's speech on X. A couple months later, in July, a federal judge denied the motion to dismiss, allowing the case to proceed to discovery and trial. That was a key moment when this trial was when Disney's move to dismiss was denied by the judge, which meant that discovery was going to happen, which meant emails, memos, all kinds of interoffice communication was going to be reviewed and looked at. The trial was set for September 2025. And now here we are, just a month before the trial was set to begin. And after, what are we talking about? Almost a year's worth of discovery, multiple months of discovery, Disney decides that they're going to settle. So we've got comments from both parties. The comment from Disney upon the settlement was, the Walt Disney Company and Lucasfilm are pleased to announce that we have reached an agreement with Gina Carano to resolve the issues in her pending lawsuit against the companies. Ms. Carano was always well respected by her directors, co-stars, and staff, and she worked hard to perfect her craft while treating her colleagues with kindness and respect. With this lawsuit concluded, we look forward to identifying opportunities to work together with Ms. Carano in the near future. Before we analyze that, I just want to go and read Gina Carano's statement. She says, I have come to an agreement with Disney/Lucasfilm, which I believe is the best outcome for all parties involved. I hope this brings some healing to the Force. Gina, the Force should be capitalized.
It should be. What is capital F, Gina, capital F.
I want to extend my deepest, most heartfelt gratitude to Elon Musk, a man I've never met, who did this good Samaritan deed for me in funding my lawsuit. So Jim, both sides are claiming victory here. Disney supporters are saying that they won. Gina Carano is saying that she won. Is there a winner in this at the end of the day? And what do you make about Disney's statement where they say we're looking forward to identifying opportunities to work together with Ms. Carano in the near future? They didn't just say future. They added the word near. Should we read anything into that?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. Now, one thing I have to say, though, before answering that question, I want to answer your other question about claiming victory. Mm-hmm. Okay. Anytime the defendant has to settle with the plaintiff, it's typically a victory for the plaintiff. You know, I mean, they're not going to read. The only reason they're reaching a settlement is because they don't want dirty laundry dragged out in the courtroom, and they don't want to be liable for like 10 times, 100 times more than what they can achieve via a settlement.
Yeah.
Gina was asking for $75,000. Something tells me she received a lot more than that. A lot more.
And she wanted to be reinstated in the role.
She certainly did. That's the other big thing. You can't forget that. That was part of her complaint as the plaintiff, was that she wanted to be reinstated as Cara flippin' Dune. And so I think you have to really amplify that final line of the statement. With this lawsuit concluded, we look forward to identifying opportunities to work together with Ms. Carano, Miss Dune, in the near future. Hashtag Cara Dune lives. If Disney was smart, they would slot her into the Mandalorian and Grogu ASAP. I think that would be the smartest move for them to do right away.
Get her in that movie.
Bring Cara Dune back.
Is that what you're saying?
Into the movie, yes.
Get her
yes,
in there.
of course.
Okay.
I don't think there's a chance in hell Rangers of the New Republic will ever be resuscitated, but I certainly do believe Cara Dune is going to return. That's what she wants, and that's what she's going to get. And that's what this entire lawsuit is going to provide to her. Now, I love the line. Another line that should not be overlooked here in this statement was, this is Disney. Mm-hmm. Ms. Carano was always well respected by her directors, yes, co-stars, fact, and staff, questionable. Especially if you're talking about the Lucasfilm people. In 2021, a Lucasfilm representative, nameless, faceless, we don't know who this person is, but they took to the official Lucasfilm Star Wars accounts and stated that Gina Carano was not currently employed in the Star Wars production company, nor were there any plans for her to be in the future because her posts were abhorrent and unacceptable. Abhorrent and unacceptable certainly does not sound like Ms. Carano was always well respected by staff. And that's a fact, Jack. And Lucasfilm's occasional pettiness from the past 10 years is occasionally very obvious. Very obvious. I'm happy Gina got justice in this case. And, you know, I'm not choosing a side or anything. I saw something on Twitter this week where somebody was like, I was a diehard listener to Rebel Force Radio, but they refused to stand with Gina. It's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? We were just talking about what's going on. We have to inject ourselves into everything, especially something as a slippery slope as Gina Carano and her tweets and Lucasfilm and Disney and all that. Right. Listen, I don't think anybody was like a saint in this situation, man. I mean, everybody has a dirt on their hands as far as this goes. I think Gina took a very flawed approach once she was made aware that her tweets were threatening her career. She was made very well aware that her career was on the line. And she said, no, I'm going to just keep tweeting this stuff. She's, Gina Carano, she's too nice of a person to be involved in such a cultural war, but yet she demands she be like the centerpiece of it. And she's the last person in the world who should be. She needs to embrace her career.
What she was being portrayed as in the press, and really, and by press, I mean really social media, is in such stark contrast to what her co-stars, who are on record as being politically and socially opposite of Gina, but yet very much pro Gina as a human being. So there was a huge
But the hypocrisy is they're allowed to go onto social media and say whatever they want without repercussion from the parent company or from Lucasfilm.
This is also true.
But Gina was under the microscope.
Now,
whether you like or hate what she said, it's,
there was a double standard. Now, let me say this.
The double standard.
We were talking about the victory laps that are being run by both parties. So here's the case for Disney coming out on top. This is what I'm hearing. They were able to avoid the trial, so they saved money in that sense. They saved potential reputational harm. They didn't have to admit to any liability. They didn't have to say that they were wrong, that they were incorrect. They didn't have to really backtrack on anything. But you're so right in pointing out the difference between the abhorrent and the unacceptable to the kind, respectful, hardworking person that they acknowledge in the statement. And lastly, that people are saying, look, this happens all the time. Look at the $15 million that was given to Trump over the 60 Minutes lawsuit. Look at the $16 million by Paramount. Companies do this all the time. So this is not a case for victory for Gina Carano. That's what the Disney camp, or people that are I shouldn't say the Disney camp, but people that have supported Disney's position in this case are saying. I believe that you are right. I agree with you that in these cases, when the one that settles, especially when you have the resources of a Disney, to say that Disney, this is a victory for Disney is crazy. Gina Carano is bless her heart, but she's an ant. She's an insect on the giant body that is Disney. So for them to sort of capitulate and settle, I don't know how you could see this as anything but a victory. This is David versus Goliath, and David wins.
With the help of the richest man on the planet,
That is also very, very true. She had unlimited resources herself. Good reminder there. Absolutely right.
But I mean, how do you even stand a chance against the Disney company unless you have those sort of resources? So, I think she was in a very fortunate situation, and I hope that Gina receives some justice and some maybe, personal calm. Yeah. Because it certainly rocked her world. And at the end of the day, to put yourself through something like that, I mean, she obviously is a pretty tough person, but it's a lot. It's a lot to put your career on the line over some tweets, because your tweets aren't going to do anything. It's not going to change the world. You're not going to tweet something and go, okay, the problem's fixed. It's all about grandstanding. It's all about making your presence known as opposed to really standing up for what's right. You want to stand up for what's right? Put your money where your mouth is and start supporting the cause with your pocketbook. And I mean, I don't know what Gina does, what kind of charity organizations or political organizations she donates to, but tweets aren't going to do anything to change the world, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
And it's not worth putting your career on the line for some silly tweets.
Yeah.
And that's all it was. That's all it was, Swank. It was just tweets.
But it was.
That's all it was.
They were tweets that were thrown into this powder keg of a nation, like I said, a world that was thrown into this pandemic, that was dealing with a controversial election. And I don't want to be U.S. centric here, but I turn on the news and it seems like U.S. politics dominate even world news. So you can't say that the election of 2020, coupled with the pandemic and its after effects, didn't just create this environment where, again, we were at each other's throats. I'm not saying that this might not have happened outside of a pandemic and outside of election, but I think it's less likely. I just think things were just so overhyped and over amplified. When you look back on it, Jim, you're right. Tweets, there's some silliness aspects to this. And talk about a victimless crime or a victimless incident. The only victims, in my opinion, in all of this were the Star Wars fans that were just trying to enjoy a television show with an interesting new character. And all of a sudden, the real world politics of other people just came crashing in and disrupting it. I'm not going to say ruining it. I'm just going to say disrupting it. We're just minding our own business as Star Wars fans, and this culture war just tears right through our precious Star Wars, and it irritated the hell out of me. I'm glad it's over. If we end up with more Cara Dune, great.
Well, it was back in 2018 when I demanded a social media policy for Lucasfilm and anyone related with Star Wars. And Gina obviously took to the social media like a banshee, and she really had something to prove. She was flexing. She was clearly flexing and enjoying the spotlight and the attention it was giving to her. Whether, I believe she believed in what she was saying, but was it really worth putting your entire career on the line over some tweets? It's just, it's insanity. I just think that maybe she should have been a little bit more prudent and prioritized her career over the tweets. Because it's, again, like I said, the tweets aren't going to do anything. They're not going to change the world. They're not going to adjust the world leaders' mind frames and policy and all of that. Your tweets aren't going to do any of that. None of that.
I agree.
I've never ever known a tweet that could do that.
Here's the problem, though. And this goes back to August of 2020, a very rough summer in the United States and other parts of the world with the Black Lives Matter movement, and some people came out and started to attack Gina Carano because she wasn't vocally, proactively in support of it. So she ended up starting to defend herself, saying, well, I'm not racist just because I don't put a black square in my profile. And then came the beep, bop, boop, with the
pronouns in the bio.
And all of that. So I agree with you that I wish we all would just sort of go back to the good old days. Remember when we were told that you didn't talk about sex and politics in good
and
company.
Religion.
And religion, right. Sex, politics, and religion. No, you're
don't forget that.
Yeah, sex, politics, and religion. And we kept those things kind of close to the vest, and it didn't disrupt our abilities to be friends with one another, neighbors with one another, and a lot of that has changed, unfortunately. So on the one hand, totally agree. I wish we could be in that world where we just do our jobs, live our lives, and go to the voting booth, pull the curtain, and do it in private the way it was intended. But unfortunately, sometimes when you're just quiet about politics, people draw you out. Do you remember when we had the I'm not right wing, I'm not left wing, I'm X wing T-shirt? You remember that? That it was such a cool T-shirt and such a cool
they're still for
logo.
sale.
Yeah, still
at
for
the
sale.
Rebel Force Radio shop, rebelforceradio.com. Click on the shop tab and get your own.
And it just so happened that that came out, and there was a presidential election. I think it was 2015 going into the 2016 election. And we just thought it was, in fact, it was based on something that you just sort of flippantly said very creatively. I'm not left wing, I'm not right wing, I'm X wing.
I was pledging my allegiance to Star Wars and not, it was my way of saying, you guys fight it out. I'm just going to go watch Star Wars.
Right,
I mean,
yeah,
really,
exactly.
it was just me kind of distancing myself from it all. But some people looked at it and they really were very angry with me.
Yeah, they were mad that you weren't siding one way or the other, which I never believed that was our role as Star Wars podcasters. That's my role when I go to the voting booth. That's not my role as I'm sitting here analyzing Star Wars news and these films. So it's easy for people to draw you in when you don't want to be part of the fight. Like, I don't have any dog in this fight, but people do drag you in. So I'm not sitting here just trying to defend Gina, because there were definitely some things that I think aspects of just sort of enjoying the shock and awe of sending tweets. But being pulled into the culture war was probably not something that she expected to happen going back to.
That's a very interesting insight. You're providing a very interesting insight, because she was getting called out for not having pronouns in her bio and not for standing up, picking a side in one of the most divisive moments of the 21st century. So it's like, she just didn't participate, and then she got called out for that. And you people forget she's an MMA fighter. And so what does a fighter do when they get backed into a corner? They start swinging, and they start swinging big. And I think that's what Gina started doing. I think her fight-or-flight instinct started kicking in.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think she got a little extreme in some of her things. And the Disney company looks at this and they go, oh, my God, you're representing our brand, and you're making these bold public statements, and it could be very damaging to the brand and your character. You please stop. Just please stop, and we can coexist together. And Gina looked at that as a challenge. And also the hypocrisy of it all, when Pedro Pascal and Mark Hamill, who two people I love and adore, they are bleeding their political views online at the same time. So if it's going to be a rule for one, it has to be a rule for all.
Right.
It really does. And Gina fell into this. She stumbled into this whole thing, because you're right. She wasn't making a lifestyle out of this prior to her getting called out. And then she felt like she was under pressure, and she felt like her integrity was on the line. So she pushed back, and boy, did she push back. But, but it's like, you want to, it's one of those, like, you poke the bear.
Yeah.
Kind of situations that happen with Gina. But unfortunately, I just think it's so misguided, because to me, and I don't know Gina Carano, I've never met the woman, but it appears that she is not necessarily someone who is, I would say, built for a lifestyle in the trenches like that. I think her value is so much above and beyond all of that. Divisiveness, adding to the divisiveness.
Well, the ironic
I don't think
thing
Gina
is,
Carano should be a player in that.
Well,
I don't know why she wants to be.
The ironic thing was, in a lot of ways, she was a unifier as a character, because there was a lot of scrutiny about, we live in the era of the tough woman character, the female warrior, and then here comes Gina Carano, who, in addition to being an actress, as you point out, is a former MMA fighter. So it's like, she really is a badass. This isn't just some beauty queen that we decided to put in this movie and make her, kick in the ass of 15 guys at once. This is somebody that looks like she could really stand toe to toe. In fact, in a fight between Gina Carano and Pedro Pascal, I'm picking Gina Carano. I'm just going to say.
I would too in a second.
So
in a fight between me and Gina, me and you,
right,
versus Gina Carano, the two of us,
right,
she would wipe the floor with our asses.
So she was an answer to some of this Mary Sue talk, and then, as the fates would have it, then she ends up being divisive. It was just really a shame all the way around. Listen, nobody really did the right thing on either side,
But Lucasfilm was really starting to beat down on a lot of people who clearly didn't march in step with whatever their ideology was. And none of that was clearly defined to anyone, by the way. And so Gina got beat down, and she wanted $75,000 and to be reinstated in her role in The Mandalorian. And I think she's getting more of both. And I expect to see Cara Dune in a future Star Wars film or streaming series. And if Disney was smart, they would slot her into that Mandalorian and Grogu film right away. I mean, right away. Pickup shoots are happening for that movie right now as we speak. Get Cara into that wardrobe, get her on the set, and have her kick ass once again. And I'm all aboard for that. Hey, you know, I pulled a couple of audio clips, Gina Carano audio, just to sort of like recap some of the history of this lawsuit via audio clips. And the first clip I have is from 2021, where Gino, in an interview, was really expressing how she felt bullied throughout this entire process.
You know, like boxers headhunt sometimes and they forget to go to the body. I feel like Disney or Lucasfilm or whoever it is, maybe just certain people in that company, I feel like I've been being headhunted for the last, I don't know how many months. And you can feel it, you know, like just a couple weeks ago, Lucasfilm asked an artist that they employ to erase my character and put a different character in place. And, you know, he proudly announces this on Twitter and erases my character and puts, you know, another character in place. And all of the fans of Cara Dune were just outraged. You know, they're like, why didn't you just add the character? Why did you have to take off the character? Is there something wrong? Is Gina getting fired? I've been through so much and I've seen so much now clearly of like the bullying that's been taking place. And I saw it before. It's not like, I mean, I'm not the only one that's ever been bullied by this company. And I know that so deeply.
Yeah, so there's Gina Carano talking about the moment when her character was removed from key art that for The Mandalorian, I forget exactly what it was. It was promoting something. And rather than just add a character, they literally erased her. And, they Boyega'd her. You know, remember when John Boyega was removed from the key art for The Last Jedi when they were going overseas with it over to China. So they Boyega'd Gina Carano, and then the artist went online and bragged about that they were the one that got to remove Gina. So it was a little... you know, so talk about petty and unprofessional. Yes. Yeah.
And that's something that has been kind of swirling around this whole thing for a number of years now.
Yeah.
Even beyond the Gina Carano thing, let me just say. All right. So,
got a little bit of experience in this realm.
Well, I mean, for sure. Yeah, right. And, yeah. So Gina revealed in 2024, just last year, I mean, the clock was ticking, you know. There's like a 3-year window to file some sort of employment claim against a corporation in the state of California. It's like a 3-year window. And right at the end of that 3-year window, 2024, Gina made the move to file a lawsuit, and she discusses here in this clip from 2024 why she decided to take that step.
It was really interesting because for the longest time, for the last couple of years, I was just distraught, trying to rebuild my life, running into all sorts of, problems of trying to, recreate my career. And finally, I was like, I had to just give it to God and say, all right, you've got me in life. I'm going to keep going and I have to let this go and give it to you. And, whatever justice I get, I know you're working behind the scenes for me. And then it was almost as soon as I did that, I got a email from a lawyer that was hired by Elon Musk and X to inquire about my case. And then I was just so excited, and I emailed him back like immediately. And, we started going through all of, I just educated them, and I sent them everything I have to date, and I have a lot more to send them. And they're wonderful, and they are just excited, and they couldn't believe. They were kind of like dumbfounded about how this happened.
Yeah. So this wasn't just Gina Carano. I believe that there were other suits, maybe smaller in scope and visibility, but where Elon Musk, as the owner of the platform that led to these cancelings of people and firings of people, felt compelled to defend them with a freedom of speech platform, I guess. So anyway, what's done is done. I'm looking forward to turning the page on this as a Star Wars fan, and I welcome more Cara Dune. As you said, Jim, I don't think we're going to get Rangers of the New Republic. I think that the door is closed on that. But the opportunity to have that character back in the Mandoverse, I think it's only upside. Only upside.
The character certainly was popular.
Yeah.
And Gina Carano is, from what I can tell, just watching her as she makes these convention appearances and does the photo ops with the fans and the meet and greets and all that stuff, she appears to be a lovely ambassador for Star Wars.
Yeah.
As long as she doesn't bring her personal politics into it.
Yeah.
She's lovely.
Let's all.
She's absolutely lovely.
Let's all, let's all do that. When we enter a Star Wars celebration or things like that, can we all just leave that stuff outside and go in and just hang out and have fun as Star Wars fans? Can we do that?
Yeah,
please?
be lovely.
Yeah,
be lovely, not political. It'd be lovely.
Yeah.
And be a great ambassador for Star Wars, because, we talk about superstars like Gina Carano being good ambassadors for Star Wars, but each and every one of us should be a great ambassador for Star Wars. Say it loud, say it proud, and do it the right way. Do it in a way that welcomes all opinions and welcomes any sort of takes, or, always be open to the new lore or whatever, even if you think it sucks. I mean, just ride the wave, because there's going to be another wave right after it, and it might be the wave of your dreams. So just stick with it. Me and Jason prefer the loyalty to Star Wars over loyalty to some sort of other outside influences that seep into the whole scene.
Yeah.
It's just like, keep it pure, for crying out loud. This is entertainment. It's Star Wars. It's nice.
Exactly.
It's fun. Rebel Force Radio.
We go from one controversial Star Wars figure to another, and Kathleen Kennedy. And Jim,
true.
I mean, this goes all the way back to 2020 and the fallout of the Star Wars sequel films and Solo. People saying, well, that's it. Kathleen Kennedy's out. She's done. And no sooner did they start saying that, that she got a contract extension. So the answer to all those early rumors in 2020 was a contract extension in 2021. And that, so that was through 2024. And that's when things started to really kind of heat up about maybe she was going to retire. She objected to that term. It was a bit of semantics because she was, I think, taking umbrage at the idea of retirement, and she sees herself, I think, as more than a CEO of a company. She sees herself as a filmmaker. And so when people, she is a filmmaker, right? But I'm saying that she defines herself as that. And so when the talk was she was retiring, she goes, I will always be making movies. I'm a filmmaker. So, but now we've got more to this, and maybe even a timeline for this retirement.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's becoming more and more solid as the days fly off the calendar. We had originally heard that August could be a date for her to step down. But we never really have seen anything to solidify that kind of rumor. But we definitely do know that Kathy is on her way out as the head of the Lucasfilm studio. But of course, like the transition of leadership when it comes down to a major motion picture film studio, it's not that easy. You have to have a succession plan in place. And even if your succession plan doesn't work out, like in the case of Disney, Bob Iger stepped down, Bob Chapek stepped up, Bob Chapek was blown out, and Bob Iger came back. I don't know if that's going to happen with Lucasfilm, but Kathleen Kennedy, I mean, she's in her 70s now, and she's been running Lucasfilm for a number of years, and it's the rumors have been flying around everywhere that she's going to be stepping down as leader of the studio. And nobody's saying she's retiring. She's not retiring. She's a film producer to the core. That's probably our biggest issue with Kathy Kennedy. She's a film producer to her core. Is she a studio head? Is she the leadership of Lucasfilm that is effective? Absolutely not. But George Lucas thought so. So,
well, I think he thought so, as long as he also thought so that he was going to be the creative mind behind it all.
Yes, right. Kathy would be his producer.
Right.
And he would guide the Star Wars franchise into the Disney future. But Bob Iger did a backdoor on him and screwed him, basically.
Absolutely.
And as I said on last week's show, Bob Iger sucks, okay? And I might say that every Rebel Force Radio until that MFer retires. Bob Iger sucks.
There's a bumper sticker. There's a hashtag.
Come after me and I'll call Elon's lawyers, okay? Who I have on my speed dial and they never pick up.
Strangely enough.
Whatever.
Right. Okay. So Kathleen Kennedy, as we said, so she denied, and these reports, by the way, this was the Hollywood Reporter back in February earlier this year, and then Puck News picked it up. So then she did this big deadline interview, sort of splitting hairs over the term retirement, etc.
Yeah.
And then
it was a big tap dancing routine she did.
But then, Jim, as these new Star Wars films started becoming more and more apparent, things like Starfighter, the Kinberg trilogy, we started seeing her name being tossed out as she's an executive producer. And these films go way out into the future. So it's like, wait a minute, does this add up? Is she really stepping down? How can she step down and still be attached to all these films?
That's a really interesting thing. Is that I always thought like Kathy wasn't really into Star Wars. Like she didn't get it. But when I hear that she's going to still be attached to the Starfighter project, that's a real curiosity to me. Where it's like, Kathy, she must like working on Star Wars. That's news to me. I never thought Kathy actually, I thought she liked being in the position of power as a producer whose career had advanced to that level, to where she could be the person to take over George Lucas's slot. I mean, that's shooting for the stars right there. I mean, that's a big, big deal. But with that position comes Star Wars, and the history and the legacy of it. And I always felt like Kathy was someone who reluctantly accepted that. And I kind of still feel that way to this day. But she has been there for a while, and she may have found her comfort zone as far as Star Wars storytelling goes, and she may have discovered it with Star Wars Starfighter, because she's definitely on board with that film, and that's going to be released in 2027, a year and a half after, well, I don't want to jump ahead of myself. Let's listen to this bit of audio I have from Hollywood scooper Jeff Snyder, who is like the only Hollywood scooper we hear the names and they come and go, a lot of them. But Snyder has snuck around for a long time. And his information is usually pretty damn accurate. He has a podcast called The Hot Mic with co-host John Rocha. And they were talking about the film Heat. Remember the film Heat from 1995? Michael Mann, the director, Heat.
De Niro
was with,
and Al Pacino. First time they
Al Pacino
had actually really acted together. That was a big deal. Val Kilmer in that.
That's right. That was the big plug because they both appeared in Godfather 2, but never together in the same scenes. So this was the big deal. And Michael Mann, obviously a legendary Hollywood director, and Heat came out in 1995. Michael Mann revisited the Heat universe back in 2022. He wrote a novel, a sequel.
Oh.
And it was released as a novel. And then he pitched it. Now it's in production.
Oh, wow.
It's in pre-production right now. Heat 2.
Okay.
So Snyder is talking about Heat 2 on the Hot Mic, and he let some info slip about Kathy Kennedy during the discussion. And you'll hear exactly what that info is. Along with that info, he reveals Kathy Kennedy's exit date from Lucasfilm, from what he understands it to be. So let's hear what Jeff Snyder had to say.
Michael Mann is an older gentleman.
Okay.
Who I think is slowing down maybe a little bit.
Sure.
So then you need a strong producer.
Okay.
Of which there's only so many, right? I wouldn't shock me if like Roven ended up getting Heat 2, by the way. If they brought him on to, although he doesn't produce a lot of Warner Brothers movies, so maybe not him. Anyways, I'm told that Heat 2 was offered to Kathy Kennedy.
Whoa!
And she turned it down.
Like to hasten her departure from.
No, it wouldn't hasten. It would be for when she, like in anticipation of her exit, which is in January. She'll leave in January, and so I think it was, hey, do you want to produce this movie at the top of the year potentially?
Wow.
But yeah, I heard it wasn't for her, and she turned it down. I think that you will see Kathy approached to, I mean, if she's not starting her own movies, like developing her own slate.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
I think that, you'll see the older guys who trust her.
Right.
And came up with her, reaching out to her, whether, especially Spielberg. Like, I don't know what Spielberg's going to do after. Yeah. It wouldn't shock me if he turned to Kathy to produce it. It's just a matter of whether he would also get rid of Christy McCaskill-Krieger, who's been producing his last few movies. But I think that's who, Kathy can kind of count on for support. Yeah, January, I think she'll step down. And I think it'll be what I've been saying all along with Carrie and Dave.
Yeah, Carrie Beck and Dave Filoni taking over as co-heads of it.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's the smart money there. Carrie Beck, Dave Filoni taking over, and it's going to take apparently 2 people to replace Kathy Kennedy. Jim, there's another franchise that's sort of in the wings here, and we've been hearing reports and rumors, and I'm just wondering, do you think that the reason that Kathleen Kennedy might have turned down Heat 2, and we haven't heard much about what her post-Lucasfilm plans are, is because maybe she's not only going to be looking over the Starfighter film, but also the reboot of the Indiana Jones franchise? And could we see Steven Spielberg show back up in that franchise? Do you think that a Disney-run Indiana Jones would fit with a Steven Spielberg?
Okay, as far as you asked like 3 questions there. And my answers to all 3 questions are no, no, and no.
All right.
He will never return to it. Kathy Kennedy is cutting loose and obviously humoring other offers at this point. She's listening, at least. That we know. he too was presented to her. But it's very interesting what Snyder said, how all of these legendary filmmakers are aging out. I mean, there's no denying it. They're in the 70s, 80s. They're aging out, you know. I've heard Lucasfilm talk about that way, about 50-year-olds aging out, you know. But, I mean, they have. Lucasfilm has done it. Yeah. If you want to email me, show@rebelforceradio.com, I will send you back the proof of that. And I take great exception to that as a 50-something-year-old guy. But when you get to 70, late 70s, 80s, you're aging out. Paul.
Yeah, right.
It's not debatable. It's just not debatable. Not everyone is Harrison Ford. Not everyone is Mick Jagger, you know? You are aging out. People don't defy time generally.
Right.
And we're always in awe of the individuals who do. Willie Nelson, anyone? So,
well, we all know what Willie's secret is.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And so Kathy Kennedy, will she continue to work in the realm of Star Wars, or will she go back to some of those friendships with some of these aging out directors? Guys like Michael Mann, guys like, I don't know what her relationship is with Martin Scorsese, but guys like Steven Spielberg.
Right.
I mean, Spielberg has a producer that he's been working with very directly since Kathy peeled off to go work with Frank Marshall on their studio, and then Lucasfilm. So Kathy's been kind of outside of the
she's been out of that orbit for some time.
But if you were Steven Spielberg and you had the opportunity to bring Kathy Kennedy back into your circle as you are an aging director, then you might take advantage of that.
Yeah.
You know,
you wonder.
She's the youngin.
You wonder how many more times at bat does a guy like Spielberg have, considering how long these movies take. But then you got Clint Eastwood, who's damn near 100 years old, and he's still directing movies.
Maybe he'll call Kathy Kennedy.
Yeah.
You know, a Kennedy Eastwood production.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It would be an Eastwood Kennedy production, right? I'm sorry. But so Kathy definitely has made it very clear that her career, she's not retiring.
Yeah.
But stepping down, most certainly yes. And according to Jeff Snyder, it's going to be happening in January, and Dave Filoni and Carrie Beck will be the heads of Lucasfilm 2026 and beyond. And you know what? Our own friends of RFR who are in the know have indicated this to us many, many times over the last 12 months. So that is the succession plan. For all you people who have been praying for Dave Filoni to take over Star Wars, I think your dream is going to come true.
Yeah.
And us here at Rebel Force Radio certainly are definitely not pushing back on that idea. Dave Filoni runs Star Wars because we know Dave Filoni. We know who he is. We know what his credentials are. We know what his passion is. We know what his knowledge is. Yes, thumbs up.
Yeah, and I also like the reality of having someone like a Dave Filoni who can handle things from a creative standpoint, and maybe a Carrie Beck more from the executive, administrative standpoint of things. So I think it's smart to have those two sides of the coin working together, so that she's free to run the business, he's free to run the creative side, and obviously the two have been working together for a long time, so there's probably good chemistry there.
Hey, brother, I think Kathy Kennedy set up her succession plan like a genius, because she's essentially tapping into the relationship that she had with Steven Spielberg. She realized that she was able to handle all of the practical business aspects of filmmaking while leaving Steven alone to handle the creative end.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the relationship with Carrie Beck and Dave Filoni will mirror that working collaboration that Kathy Kennedy had with Steven Spielberg. We can only benefit from this as Star Wars fans.
Right.
So again, thumbs up to this idea. And God bless Kathy Kennedy. I hope she has great success in her career as a film producer, because she is a great film producer. Studio head, not so much.
All right. Before we wrap up here this week, we've got some new stuff from Tony Gilroy. Always great to hear Tony's perspective on Star Wars, because it's always fresh, it's always interesting and unconventional. He doesn't approach it the same way as other Star Wars creatives do. So, Jim, this is apparently from Jon Stewart's podcast, The Weekly Show, not to be confused with The Daily Show. And Tony was on recently.
Yeah, Tony was on the show with another filmmaker, Mike Duncan. Mike is also a podcaster, and he has a show about the Roman Empire. You know, you hear that trope or that meme or whatever it is about people saying, "Well, I can't get my mind off the Roman Empire." You know,
the average male thinks about the Roman Empire X times a day. I think about the Galactic Empire multiple times a day, but not necessarily the Roman Empire. So, yes.
Yeah, some of us are wired a little differently.
Yeah.
But Mike Duncan is a podcaster, a fellow podcaster, and he does a show called Revolutions, and you can find it anywhere. It's a historical show, and Tony Gilroy is a mad fan of this particular podcast. So the two of them appeared together on The Weekly Show with Jon Stewart, podcast you can find anywhere, and they discussed Andor a little bit, quite a bit, I should say, and it also how Andor applies to the broader themes of historical revolutions, you know, from the 17th century all the way up till now. You know, it's a really enlightening listen, and I really enjoyed hearing this podcast. And I want to thank Patrick for tipping us off to us. Patrick sent us a tip about this interview to show@rebelforceradio.com. And he suggested I give it a spin and pull some highlights. So I did just that, because I think there's some of these things that Tony Gilroy talks about in this interview that we would find worthy of conversation. And of course, when Tony Gilroy speaks, our ears are listening. I mean, we love Tony Gilroy here. So the first clip I pulled is Tony talking about the state of the Empire, the Galactic Evil Empire, during Andor.
What I was given was 5 years. I have a 5-year piece of the calendar, and the 5 years that I have is a furnace that's just about to go nuts. So, because the Empire is at this moment making a
and this is the 5 years prior to A New Hope.
5 years prior to Rogue One, prior to the blowing up of the Death Star and the whole thing, So I get those 5 years, and I have a couple canonical incidents on the calendar that I have to pay attention to, but the general understanding of that period of time is they are consolidating power aggressively because they know they're building this energy project that will dominate everything. They are doing what every fascistic government does, which is nationalizing all the corporate entities first. They are stripping the legal system. They are rewriting. They are emasculating and completely neutering the political organizations. I have them write a public order resentencing directive in the first season, which just changes all of the laws about arrests and all those different things. I mean, they're on a big power grab.
Oh, I just, when Tony Gilroy talks, I just sit back and I just, listen and listen and listen. Okay. So he's done with that thought. So Tony had, I do appreciate Jon Stewart's fandom, because he calls it A New Hope. He jumps in there with New Hope. But Tony quickly goes, Rogue One. I mean, like Tony's
right away. He brings it back.
His milestone is Rogue One, not necessarily.
He brings it back to the Gilroy verse, is what he does.
He totally does.
That's the Lucas verse. Come to the Gilroy verse.
Because it's Tim, it's about Rogue. It's all about Rogue. But he didn't have all but just a couple of key events that he had to deal with, but he had to create this environment, that was going to make all of these big events occur and happen, and the power grab that he talks about with the Empire and all of that. So it was a pretty big mandate that he had with this 5-year gap. It was important, and I'm so glad in hindsight that it was a storyteller like Tony Gilroy that was the one to really give us probably our biggest and best view of that era.
Well, he was the best guy to do it because he's the only one who took such an intellectual take on it. Mm-hmm. Or no, take that back. Historian view.
Right. Yes.
And he was looking purely through the filter of history and not letting any other outside sources influence that. He was just looking at history, and he looked at the Empire and the rise of the Empire, and he said, how can I associate the rise of the empires that occurred throughout history, the Russian Empire, the Roman Empire, etc.? How do I establish that historical perspective into a Star Wars story? It almost seems like an impossible task for someone who is an intellectual and someone who is very historically seeped in history, like Tony Gilroy. But yet, when I hear myself say all of that, I think to myself, Tony Gilroy's the perfect guy to do all of that because he is grasping from the roots of world culture and applying it to Star Wars in such a way that it all makes sense.
Where George was going back to the very origins of storytelling, mythology, Henry had, and George was starting at a blank canvas. So George could sort of go back and draw on almost an infinite number of inspirations, whereas Tony didn't have a blank canvas. He had to connect points A to B. And so I thought that it's great that he went and he chose something so tactile and accessible as not recent history, but relative to George going back to ancient mythology, more recent history.
Yeah, Tony will spin those history books back, 200, maybe 300 years. He'll go back to like the 1800s, for this kind of thing, and apply it to the Star Wars storytelling as far as the rise of the Empire goes. To me, it enriches that entire story by just telling me that the Empire is simply bad or simply evil. That doesn't apply the substance to the storytelling that a Tony Gilroy does when he really starts mining actual moments in history. And that's very similar to the approach that I believe George Lucas took. Now, George also blended in comic books and pulp fiction and all kind of things that I don't think are ever in Tony Gilroy's inbox.
Probably not, no.
It's like never. And it shows, quite honestly, in the storytelling.
Sure.
It absolutely shows.
It's not comic booky at all.
If you want to talk comic booky, you should hear what Lucasfilm's original idea for Andor was. How they were going to continue the adventures of Cassian Andor. They came to Tony Gilroy and asked for his opinion about where they were going with the series before they even brought Tony on. They simply asked him for advice on what to do with these characters, Cassian Andor and K2SO. And they presented Tony with all of these story treatments, and Tony gave them some feedback that eventually evolved into Andor, the series. So here's Tony Gilroy talking about how he changed Lucasfilm's original idea for Andor.
They tried to do several other prequel shows with the same idea, and they what's the obvious thing to do? So they wanted to have a show where Cassian and K2 would go do adventures and stuff. So they tried to do that a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
And after they did the first one, it was very slick, the script and the package and everything. But it was Kathleen Kennedy sent it over to me, not to work on, but just for advice, and said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And I go, "Well, this is very smart and slick and entertaining." I go, "But I don't know what the hell you're going to do after episode 5. I mean, what are you going to do? Just storm the Citadel every week? There's nothing to do. You'll die on the vine here. I mean, there's no story protein here at all." And she said, "Well, what should we do?" And I said, "Well, man, if I was going to do this show, you take this guy back to a roach and pick him up on the worst day of his life and try to see how far away from, in Rogue One, he's all singing, all dancing, revolutionary warrior leader. I mean, he has every skill there is.
Right.
He's a butterfly. So, like, how far away from that could you take somebody to get there in 5 years?" And that was too radical for them at that moment. And but when they came back, a year and a half later and go, that idea doesn't sound so crazy. So it was baked in for me. I don't see any other way that you would do it.
Yeah, I mean, I could see how the temptation would be there. K2 was a great comic relief. So, yeah, the adventures of Cassian Andor and his loyal sidekick droid K2. But Tony's right. And that type of rinse, or what do they say? Wash, rinse, and repeat.
Wash, rinse, repeat.
Yeah, that type of storytelling doesn't fly anymore. It really doesn't. We want more. Jim, you and I grew up on that type of storytelling, that episodic television. And we've evolved beyond that. And I'm glad for it. And it's one of the reasons why some of these shows that I grew up with and adored as a kid, they don't hold up. I mean, I might get a nostalgia kick watching an episode or two, but once you watch more than a couple, you go, Jesus, this is the same thing every week. What was I?
You can't binge it.
You can't binge it. You're right. No. Like, yeah.
I think Tony Gilroy works on a different level than that kind of storytelling.
Oh, for
As
sure.
a matter of fact, I know he does. I know he does.
Yeah.
So Tony Gilroy, brilliant, great storyteller. And the thing that a lot of us, we can't help but look at Andor and say, my God, this mirrors so many big-time world events. It almost seems like it's predicting the future as far as things are playing out in the news and stuff like that. And Tony discusses the way that Andor may mirror current international events and how people perceive that. But yet he also puts a spin on it by revealing that it might not be the politicians and world leaders that will lead us to our demise. It could be the technology.
Tolkien had a whole thing about, he didn't like allegory. He didn't like people making comps to his work, to World War, but he was really into applicability. He wanted it to be applicable to your life. So I'm not exactly sure how wide that he takes that term, but to me, it's been shocking to go around the world. We went around the world selling the show, and every place we went, because I really didn't want to, particularly in the beginning, I didn't want to have the show get ghettoized by being left or right or political or whatever. We're really surfing through. But every journalist, every interview that we did, everywhere we went, people were finding ways to take things, the same incident, and make it applicable for them. Oh, this is Gaza. This is Ukraine. This is Northern Ireland. This is this. This is me, man. This is me. This is us. And that's, it's very sad. I do worry, as I said before, I do worry that that we're into a different situation with tech. I wonder if like if our fallacy is that we've been going along going, oh, here's all these revolutions and we know everything about a revolution and Mike's done all these shows about it and Tony's written all this stuff and it's all codified and you just pick one from column A from column B. I wonder if there isn't another page in the book that we haven't seen, and that's the page that we're on now, and that's the one that worries me the most of all. Then the tech side of it, the AI side of it, and the lack of any kind of accountability to that that's what would keep me up at night more than anything.
Boy, do I love the Tolkien quote there about comparability versus applicability. And that says so much, because we're very, very keen to say that it's comparable to this, comparable to that, when the reality very well may be it's not so much comparable, but it's applicable to that.
Yes.
And it's a great distinction that he draws there.
It all comes down to a matter of perspectives and how you consume the story. And the thing that has made Star Wars such a valuable cultural institution is the fact that it is wide open to interpretation, and nobody can ever claim it for a certain point of view.
Chewie, get us out of here!
Well, that's going to wrap things up for us here this week on Rebel Force Radio. Wow. What interesting conversations. I hope you enjoyed them as much as we enjoyed having them. And I know that a lot of you just have them right along with us. We know you're riding in your car and you're yelling at your speaker and you forgot to mention this, you forgot to mention that. That's what I think makes this medium of podcasting so important. We're riding along with you, and as we like to say, we're fellow travelers in this journey of Star Wars fandom right along with you. And if your journey needs more stops on the way, don't forget about Rebel Force Radio on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. Enjoy exclusive podcasts that you can't get anywhere else, along with weekly full show video of this podcast and others, and a great community of Star Wars fans, the best community of Star Wars fans you never want to rub elbows with on the internet. You can also watch us over on YouTube. We're on all of the social media channels like X and Facebook and Instagram. The official website for all things and everything RFR can be found at rebelforceradio.com. But best way to support us is to do what you're doing right now, which is listening, consuming Rebel Force Radio, and telling your friends about it. We love to have those referrals. Please let them know, the Star Wars fans in your life that may not have heard of Rebel Force Radio. Say it loud, say it proud, spread the gospel of RFR. And if your podcatcher of choice allows you to do so, please leave a review. We'd love to have them. Just one simple, small rule, please.
Make them good.
All right, we'll see you next week for more Rebel Force Radio, Star Wars conversation, etc., etc., etc. That'll do it for us. For RFR, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Man.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.
Yada, yada, yada.
RFR number 1, high ground.